account using the AWS IAM services, right? So let's go ahead and see what is our agenda for today to see what all we are going to cover in this session. All right, so we're going to start with why do we need access management and then move on to what is IAM. After that, we're going to see what are the components, what are the different components of IAM, and move on to discuss the multi-factor authentication service offered by IAM. And towards the end, we'll be doing a hands-on wherein we'll be creating, or I'll be demonstrating to you an application which will upload your files to S3 using the IAM policies. Alright, so guys, this is our agenda for today. I hope it's clear to you. So let's go ahead and start with today's session with the first topic, which is why do we need access management? Alright, so to discuss this topic, let's understand it using an example. Say you have a company in which you have a server, and this server has everything in it. It has all the modules in it, and it gives you it gives different users the permission to use the different servers, right? Now, in your company, first of all, you should have an administrator which will have all the rights to access the server, right? So nobody in the today's IT world works on the root account, right? So there has to be an administrator account. So first, we will create an administrator account with all the permissions. Now, tomorrow, say a UI developer comes into your company, right? Now, a UI developer will only work on the graphical tools, right? So he should only be allowed the graphical tools and not some other tools. Maybe he shall not be given the internet access or something like that, right? Maybe he's not giving the PowerPoint access, maybe he's not given some folders access, some drives access, anything like that. So all of that can be defined in the server by the administrator, and specific rights will be given to a UI developer, right? Similarly, if after that a business analyst comes in, so he should only be able to access the analytics module which is there in your server, right? He should not be able to get into the UI development part, or he should not be able to see the other aspects of what is there in your server, right? So each and every user or each every role will have specific rights assigned to them, right? And this is done by policies which are in turn given by administrators, right? So this is what access management is, that giving each role the specific rights that they deserve. And this is what we are going to accomplish today in AWS, right? So this is why we need access management. Let's go ahead and understand how can we accomplish this in AWS, right? So to accomplish this in AWS, you need a service called IAM. You have a service called IAM which uses this concept of access management and allows you to give it to your users who are going to use your account, right? So what is IAM? So IAM is basically a service from AWS using which you can give permissions to different users who are using the same AWS account that you have created, right? So in a company in any company, be it, you don't have to have 2 or 3 AWS accounts. You can have one AWS account on which a number of people can work, right? For example, you can define that maybe a developer would like to work on your AWS account, and he should only have the EC2 instances, or he should only work on the EC2 instances. You decide that, right? So you can define a policy like that, that only the developers will only be able to access the EC2 instances on your AWS account. Similarly, if say a database administrator comes in, so he should be only able to access the DB instances on your AWS account, and so on, right? So all of that is possible using IAM. But IAM is not only about creating users and creating policies. There is more to IAM, right? And hence we'll be discussing the different components of IAM now. So let's go on and see what are the different components. So there are basically 4 different components in the IAM service. So the first service is user, then we have groups, then we have roles, and then we have policies. Right? So the way we are going to go about these are, first I'm going to explain you each role or each service in IAM, each component in IAM, and then we're going to see how we can execute them or create them in the AWS console. Right? So let's start with the users. So the very first time you actually create a AWS account, that is basically the root account that you have created, right? So there is no user inside it. So why do we basically need a user? You need a user because you are supposed to give permissions to someone, right? So say I first of all want to give administrator rights to a user, right? So you understand, you have to have an entity first to which you can assign permissions, right? So these entities are called users on AWS. So any person who wants to access your AWS account has to be added as a user in IAM, and then you can attach different policies onto that user. All right, so this is what user is all about. Let me go to my AWS Management Console and show you how you can create a user in IAM. All right, so give me a second. All right, guys, so this is my AWS sign in page. All right, so this email ID, when you log in through your email ID and your password, that is basically your root account. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to log in using my root account and first create a admin account for myself. All right, guys, so you should never work in your root account. You should always have an administrator account to work in. The root account should only be used when there is an emergency. Say you have been logged out of your administrator account, only then you should be using your root account. So the first thing that you should do when you enter your root account is go to IAM, which is just right here. Go to IAM and then you will have this dashboard thing, right? Over here you can see there is a thing called users. You will click on users and you will click on add user. All right, so now it will ask you for the username, so you can provide a username. Say I'll add my name first, so that be Hemant, right? And what kind of access do I want to give to this particular user? So there are basically two kinds of access that I can give. First is the AWS Management Console access, and then we have the programmatic access, right? So what is these two? If you want to, so there are basically two ways you can access the AWS resources, right? You can either access them using APIs, that is using your code. Say you have created an application which is interacting with your AWS resources, right? So in that case, if you're interacting with the APIs, using the APIs, that is called the programmatic access, right? Secondly is the AWS Management Console access. That is when you are using the AWS website to actually deploy resources or create or remove policies or whatever, right? So that is called the AWS Management Console access. So for my user, I'd be giving it both the accesses, that is programmatic access and the management console access. Also guys, when you enable the programmatic access, basically you get the access key and the secret key as well. What are these? I will be explaining you in a bit. Alright, so we have selected both of these options and then move ahead to choose the password. So do you want an auto-generated password or a custom password? I'll choose a custom password since I'm creating account for myself, right? So I'll choose a custom password. And do I want to reset the password on my first login? No, I don't want that. So I'll click on next permissions. All right, so what kind of permissions do I want my account to have? I will be configuring that over here. So as of now, there are no groups. There is no existing user that I can copy from. So I'll attach existing policies, and since I want to attach the administrator access, that is the first policy over here, I'll select that and click on next. Alright, so you can review all the settings that you did over here and click on create user. This will create a new user in your AWS account. So as you can see, I have got my access key ID and a secret access key. Now guys, the secret access key you only get it to see only one time when you have created your account. So it is essential that you store your access key and a secret access key once you get this page. Alright, so let me store it quickly. So this is my access key ID. Why we are copying it, you'll get to know during the session. Don't worry. And my secret access key, which is this, so let me copy this and paste it in the notepad. Alright, so don't worry, you might be thinking that I've exposed my secret key to you, so I'll be deleting this account afterwards, so you don't have to worry about that. Alright, so I've got my access key ID and my secret access key, so that is done. Now what I'll be doing is I'll be logging out from my root account and logging in this user account that I just created. Alright, so one more thing that you have to be very careful of, that you will not be logging in through the same login page that you just saw, right? So you'll have to log in through a different login page now, and the URL for that is this, right? So you'll be logging in through this link as of from now on. So whenever you create a user, if you want them to log into your account, you have to give them this link to log in into, right? So let us copy this link over here and log out from our root account. Alright, so I've logged out. I'll close this and I'll come here and go to this particular link. Alright, so once you reach this particular link, it will be asking you the account name, which will be self-filled by your link, right? So you have to give your username now, which is Hemant, and then the password. So I'll type in the password that I've given it and click on sign in. So now I have basically signed in to the user that I've just created on my root account. Right, so I no longer have to use my root account. I can basically lock away my root account for emergency purposes. I'll be using my administrator account from now on. I can do everything from my administrator account that could be done from my root account as well. But there are cases wherein you get locked out from your administrator account. In that cases, you will be needing your root access. All right. So moving on, guys, so I'll go to IAM now. So as you can see, we have created a user and we have logged into that user. And if I go to IAM now, you can see that it will show that one user has been created. That is here. All right. So let's get back to our slide and discuss the next component. All right. So we've discussed what are users. Let's move on to the second component, which are groups. Alright, so whenever you create users, they can also be combined into groups. Now, why do we need groups? We need groups because, let's take an example. So say you have 5 users and these 5 users have to be given identical access, right? Say these 5 users belong to the development team, and the developing team has to have some common access that they all will have, right? Now, one way of doing this would be that I would go to each and every user and attach a policy that they need. Right? The smart way to do this would be to include them inside one group, and to that group I will only once I will attach the policy, and it will apply to all these 5 users. Right? So these are why groups are very important. Now, how we can create groups? Let me shed a light on that. So you will go to you can see you can click on groups over here, and what you'll do basically is you'll click on create new group. All right? So let me give the group name as live demo. All right, and I'll click on next step. Now it will ask me the policy that I want to attach to this particular group. All right, so say for example, I just want this group to be able to access the S3 service from AWS. So what I'll do is I will select the policy which says Amazon S3 full access, and I'll click on next step. Now this policy basically tells you that you're going to only use the S3 service in the management console and no other service. All right. So I'll click on create group, and now whichever user I will be putting inside this group will have this property. All right. So I don't have to configure the policy for any user now. So what I'll do is I'll create a new user now. So say I create a new user saying test, all right, and then I'm not giving him the programmatic access, I'm just giving him the management console access. All right, I'll click on this and I'll give it a custom password, and then I don't want him to reset his password. I'll click on next. Right, and now it is asking me whether I want to include it inside a group. So yes, I do. I want to include it inside the group that I've just created, and I'll click on next and review all the settings that I've just did and click on create user. All right, so the test account has just been created. Now, as you can see, guys, in the case of my account which I created, I got an access key and a secret access key. right? So in this case, I'm not getting any because I didn't select the programmatic access. Only when you select the programmatic access, it will give you the key so that your application can actually interact with the services that you have launched. All right. So I've created a test user successfully. Let's log into this test user. So I will type in the URL that has been given to me. Right. Now, when I'll reach this page, I'll enter the username as test and the password as what I have entered, right? And I'll click on sign in. Now with this, you can see that I will now be able to see the management console. The management console will exactly look like how it was used to see, how I used to see it in my root account or my administrator account. But when you will try to access, say, a service which you have not been assigned to, say, for example, I only have access to S3 right now because I've deployed it in the group where it has only the access to S3. If I try to go inside EC2, let's see what will happen. Right? So it says you're not authorized to describe running instances. As a matter of fact, I'm not authorized to see anything on my EC2 page. All right. So that is because I don't have access to the EC2 dashboard. But let's see if I can see the S3 dashboard. So I'll quickly go to S3. And if I have the S3 access, I'll be able to see all the buckets which are there in my S3. And yes, I do. So let me go inside a bucket and delete something so that, all right, so let me delete an object from this particular bucket. So yes, I can delete it. All right, so let me check if what happens if I delete or I detach this particular policy from that group. All right, let's see what happens. So I'll go to IAM and I'll go to groups. I'll go to this particular group and I can see that the policy is listed over there. What I'll do is I'll click on detach policy and let's see what happens now. Right, so I'll go to management console. So if now I try to access S3, it will show me that access is denied. Right, so I no longer have access to the S3 service on my AWS console. So this is how you can control access to different users. You can revoke access, you can include access, right? You can do all of that in IAM. All right, so let us come back to our slide to discuss our next component. All right, so we've discussed what are users, we've discussed what are groups. Now let's come down to roles. All right, so roles are similar to users, but roles are actually assigned to applications. All right, so users are actually assigned to people, right? So whenever you have a developer in the company, you will assign him the developer roles, right? But when you have roles are basically assigned to applications. How? Let me explain you. Say you create an EC2 instance, and inside that EC2 instance, you are hosting a web application. Now that web application has been designed in such a way that it has to interact with your S3 services, for example, that we'll be doing today. I'll be showing you the demonstration today for this, right? So say that application has to interact with the S3 service. Now, if I want that application to interact with the S3 service, I have to give it permissions. And to give it permissions, I will use role. So I will create a role wherein I will specify that this role can access the S3 service, and I will attach this particular role to that particular EC2 instance in which my application is hosted. And in that case, my application will be able to interact with the S3 service, right? It might sound complicated, guys, but it is very easy to implement. Let me show you how. So what I'll do now is I'll go back to my management console, which is here. All right, I'll go to the dashboard and say I'll go to roles now. All right, so I'll create a new role. Now roles can be assigned to any AWS service which is listed here. What I'll do is I'll assign it to I'll create a role type of EC2. All right, so I'll select Amazon EC2. And what type of role do I want to apply it to? I want to say have the access to S3, right? So I'll select Amazon S3 full access over here, and I'll click on next step. So it'll ask me the role name. So let me specify the role name as Edureka_1, right? And I'll click on create role. So with this, a role has now been created, but mind you guys, I've not attached this role to any EC2 instance, right? So what I'll do now is I'll go to my EC2 console. So over there, I already have built an EC2 instance. It is stopped, so I'll start it and attach this particular policy to that EC2 instance. Alright, so my EC2 instance name is 𝐸𝐸manth_1. So here it is. I'll go to actions. I'll start this particular instance. Right, and what I can do is I can attach the policy using instance settings. It says attach or replace IAM role. I'll go here. I will go to the drop down and select the role that I've just created, which is Edureka_1. I'll select that and I'll click on apply. Now with this, what will happen is my role is now my EC2 instance is now configured to interact with the S3 service in this particular account. Alright, so any application that I deploy in this EC2 instance will be able to interact with the S3. Okay, so I don't have to specify any access key, any secret access key. If you're still confused with that, be patient. We are getting on to where do we actually use these keys and where do we not. Alright, so this is what your roles are all about, right? So roles, like I said, they are for resources in AWS. Users are for people. Roles and users are similar things. You attach policies onto them, and they basically identify a particular instance or a particular person as the owner of that particular service, right? So I've discussed what roles are. Let's move on and discuss policies. So if you think about it, guys, we've actually been dealing with policies, right? So policies are nothing but permissions that you give to your with whatever role or user or group that you have created, right? So for example, I want to give the EC2 instance access, right? So that EC2 instance access is basically a policy that I'll be attaching to the user or to the roles. All right, let's see how we can create policies, guys. So I'll go to my management console. I'll go to IAM. Right, so you can either create policies or you can actually use the already existing ones. So there are a couple of policies that have already been created in your AWS account, but you can go ahead and create your own policy as well. All right, so let me show you how. So say for my test account, what I'll do is I will go inside test account. Alright, and I will add permissions and I will attach existing policies directly, and here I am, guys. So now you can create policies as well. So you see the tab over here, guys. It says create policy. So if you feel the kind of policy that you want to create is not listed over here in the default policies, you can actually create one. And creating a policy is very easy, guys. You'll just click on create policy and you will see this page. Alright, so you'll have three options. You can either copy an AWS managed policy, that is a default policy. You can create your own policy by just typing in the JSON code. And if you're not comfortable with coding, what you can do is you can use the policy generator. Now what is policy generator? Let me explain you. So with policy generator, you just have to select what effect do you want. Do you want it to allow it or do you want it to deny it? Right, so say I want to allow the EC2 service to this particular test account. All right, so I'll go to EC2. All right, here it is. I selected EC2. What kind of actions can he perform? Say I want to give him all the actions. You can do anything with EC2, and resource name is basically a particular resource. So with ARN you can identify a particular resource. So I don't want a particular resource to be assigned to him. I want he can access every resource in EC2, right? So I just add star for all of them, right, and click on next step. So with this, as you can see, it has automatically created a policy document for you. All you have to do now is click on create policy, and it will create the policy for you. So as you can see, there were 18 customer managed policies. There are now 19. So I can go here and select the policy over here. All right. So if I go to my user now, which is test, and go to permissions, I will just click on add inline policy, click on select, again go to EC2, select actions, all actions, right, and put it to star. So I'll click on add statement, click on next step, and click on apply policy. So a policy has been applied on the test user that it can actually access the EC2 instances now. So if I go to my test user now, in which I was not allowed to access the EC2 instances, I can actually use the EC2 instances now. So if I go to EC2, you can see it will not give me the access denied thing, right? So I can access all the instances over here as if I was using the root account, but only for the EC2 service, right? If I go to S3, you can see I will still have the access denied page because I've not been assigned the access to this particular service. All right. One more thing, guys. What if you add an allow and a deny policy together inside a group? What will happen then? So in that case, so since I have allowed EC2 access, what I'll do is I'll deny EC2 access as well in this particular user. So I'll create one more policy and I'll say deny. I'll select EC2. Right, I'll select the actions as all actions. I'll give the resources all, add the statement, and click on next step, apply the policy. So now I have denied EC2 instances as well and created and allowed EC2 instances as well. What do you think will happen now? So if now I try to go to EC2, let's see what will happen. So it will say you're not authorized to use EC2 anymore, because whenever you're creating policy, guys, you either get the allow option or the deny option. If you have selected both of them, it will always prefer the least permission that you have given. So in our case, that is the deny option, right? So it will always deny the case even if you have allowed it in the same user, right? If you have mentioned that that particular service has to be denied to that particular user. All right, so this was about policies, guys. Let me come back to my slide. So we have discussed what are users, what are groups, what are roles, and what are policies. Let's go ahead and discuss the very important part of authentication, which is called the multi-factor authentication. So what is multi-factor authentication, guys? So multi-factor authentication is basically something like OTP that you get when you're logging into your Gmail account, right? So you enter your Gmail email ID, you enter your password, and when you click on continue, it'll ask you for your OTP, right? So same is the case here as well. You can configure your AWS account in such a way that you will enter your username, you'll enter your password, and when you click on login, it'll also ask you for a code that has to be given to it. Now that code is basically the multi-factor authentication thing that we're talking about. So there are basically two layers of security now. One layer is a password and second layer becomes the code that you'll be entering, right? Now with AWS, there is an application called the Google Authenticator, right, which you can use to create a virtual multi-factor authentication device. Now, for those of you who already are using multi-factor authentication in your companies, so there's a thing called Zomato, right? So people who work from home and they have to connect to their company's network, the way you connect it is using a Zomato token, right? And so those of you who are from the IT background, you can relate to it, right? But if you want to go through a simpler way, you can actually create a virtual factor authentication device. And to create that in your AWS is pretty simple. You just have to download an application called Google Authenticator on your phone, and you have to connect that application to your AWS account, and that is it. Now it might sound tough, but it's very simple. Let me show you how. So you will basically go to your AWS management console, and you will go to the particular user that you want that multi-factor authentication to be assigned to. Right? So for example, I want it to be assigned to the test user, right? So what I'll do is I'll go to users, I'll go to test, right? And in the security credentials tab, I will have this page which says assigned MFA device. So it says no as of now. So I'll assign it a device. I'll click on edit. And now it'll give me an option between a virtual MFA device and a hardware MFA device. Now I have to choose among the two. So since I said you can create a virtual MFA device very easily, so I'll select the virtual MFA device. And now it is basically asking you to install the application on your phone. So we have already done that. Let's click on next step, and now you'll be presented with the screen. So basically now what you have to do is you'll be logging into your Google Authenticator app, and you will be scanning this barcode from your phone. So let me show you how. Let me connect my phone to the computer so that you can see the screen. Give me a second. Alright, so this is a screen to my phone, guys. So what I have to do now is I'll have to go to the Google Authenticator app, and it'll ask me to create an account. So I'll click on begin, and once I have that, basically now I'll have to scan the barcode from my mobile. So the way to do that is I'll click on scan a barcode, and then I'll scan this barcode over here. Right, it might take some time, so be patient. Yeah, so it's done. Now you're all set, right? So you'll just click on done, and now you have to enter two codes that you will be receiving on your Google Authenticator. So basically these codes change from every 30 seconds, right? So I have to enter these codes over here. So it's 204 and then 020 and 353. 020 353, and I have to enter the next code as well. So let's wait for the next code, and it's 127891. So I'll enter that over here as well. So it's 127891, and that is it, guys. So now I'll click on activate virtual MFA, and it says the MFA device was successfully associated. So I'll click on finish, and that is it, guys. You're done. Right, so now if I log out from my test account, that is from here, right? This is my test account. So if I log out from here right now, and try to log in again using test, so I'll come to my normal login page, right? So I'll enter my username and my password, which is this, and now I'll click on sign in. So now it will ask me for the MFA code. So let's see what is our MFA code as of now. So it has changed to 734552. So let us enter that, 734552, and click on submit. So with this, I'll now be able to log in to my AWS console using the test account which I configured using the administrator account in IAM. Alright, so it's very simple, guys. You can actually get world-class security with the click of a button using IAM. Alright, so we have seen how we can do multi-factor authentication. Let's move on to the hands-on part now. So this is what is you guys have been waiting for. So just give me a second so that I can configure everything on my end. Alright, so what we'll be doing now is I have created an application which can interact with the S3 service. Alright, so using that S3 service now, we'll be uploading files to our S3 console. And how we are going to do that? First, we are going to do that using localhost, and that is where our secret keys and my access key comes in. And then we have assigned a role to our EC2 instance, right? So we'll be accessing that website using EC2 without the access key and the secret access key, and we'll see, do we get the access to our S3 service or not? All right, so let us do that. So now what I'll do is I will go to my localhost application. So guys, this is basically my application. What I have to do is I'll choose a file, I'll upload a picture from any sample pictures, and then it'll upload it to a particular bucket that I've defined in S3, and that the bucket looks something like this. Right, so that bucket's name is quarantine demo. So let me show you the bucket. So as of now, I think there are some objects, so let's delete those objects. So here it is. This is the bucket quarantine demo. So I have like 3 objects over here as of now. So let's delete these objects. Alright, so now what I'll be doing is this is the code for my application, guys. Alright, so in this code, as you can see, I have not specified the key and the secret key as of now. So I'll get the key and the secret key from here, right? So let me show you without the secret key and access key how is this localhost website functioning. So if I try to upload a file as of now, say this is the file that I want to upload, I'll click on upload image and I'll get an error, right? Because it is not authenticating itself to the service that I want to go to. So now I'll add the credentials, that is the key and the secret key. Now the way to do that is like this. So I'll copy it and I'll paste it here. I'll delete this and this as well, not required. And now I'll paste my key and my secret key, which is this, right? So I'll copy the key over here and then my secret key as well over here. And now I'll save it, and if I try to access my localhost website now, I should be able to upload a file, right? So if I try to upload the file now, it says well done, S3 upload complete. So these credentials that I've just entered are basically credentials for my 𝐂𝐻𝐻 account. So if you want to see where did I get these credentials from again, you can basically go to users, you can go to your user, and you can go at security credentials, and over here it will list you the access key ID. It will not list you the secret access key because it is only available once. You can only use it once, copy it once, you will not be able to see it again. And if I make this particular key inactive from over here, and if I try to upload anything again, I will again get an error because without the keys my account will not be authenticated to the S3 service. So as you can see, it says invalid access key because it is not valid anymore. Alright, so I can make it active again, but that is not required as of now. So what I'll do now is I've already configured this website on the EC2 console. Alright, so let me go to my EC2. Right, here it is. So remember, in the starting of the session we created a role for S3 full access, right? So that role has been attached to my EC2 instance. So let me show you the website. Here it is. Alright, so I can access the website on my EC2. Now if I choose a file as of now and I try to upload the file, I'll be able to do so because my policy has been attached. Now let's see what happens if I de-attach the policy, right? So I'll go to this and I'll select no role, click on apply, yes, detach. And now if I try to upload a file again, as you can see, I see a blank page, which basically means that an error has occurred. Alright, so I am not able to upload any file because my role has been detached from my EC2 instance. So if I want it to be working again, I'll just simply go here, go to actions, settings, attach the role, that is this, click on apply, and it will again work. Right, I'll choose a file, say this file, upload the image, and it will work again. Works like a charm, right? So that is it, guys. You don't have to configure much. You just have to have the knowledge of IAM, and with that you can do complex procedures with the click of a button, and you don't have to swear about it. Alright, you might be wondering, did I change anything in the code when I uploaded it to EC2? So you don't have to do anything, guys. You just have to delete the credentials, key and secret, and you will upload the code as it is. You don't have to change anything. If it doesn't have the key mentioned in this particular function, it'll basically get those keys from the metadata of EC2, and metadata is the place where your role is actually assigned, or your role is actually attached, right? So if it doesn't find the key in the code, it basically goes to the metadata and picks the key from over there. Alright, so guys, that is it for the demo part, and that is it, guys. So that is all for today's session. I hope you learned something new today, guys. Have a nice day ahead, guys. Good luck and goodbye.